Truth Unveiled here, and today I have some very important information to share with you. I'm sure you've probably heard it, but I would just like to share it with you once again. It has to do with Mr. Obama and giving control of the internet away from America because it's no longer America. What time do you really think it is? But I'm here at Breitbart and it says 2 months left until Obama gives dictators control of internet. Do you know what that means? Hello, do you see what's going on here? I hope so. But it even says that President Barack Obama is determined to give away control of the internet within 2 months in what's called one of the worst blunders in the history of national security, economic policy, and the fight for liberty generally, in the wake of the embarrassing revelation that the National Security Agency, or the NSA, which also stands for No Such Agency, was spying on foreign leaders, and that's not the only ones they're spying on. The Obama administration announced plans in 2014 to shift control of the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or ICANN, from the U.S. to a multilateral body, and we're going to be talking more about ICANN in a second to come. Under the supervision of Obama crony and Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker, a billionaire heiress and campaign bundler with no technological experience and a history of failure in the subprime loans industry, the administration has ignored critics of the plan. They point out that transferring control of domain names to a body like the UN's International Telecommunication Union, or the ITU, could leave autocratic nations like Russia, China, and even Iran in charge of the world's most important free medium. And notice how mainstream media loves to mention Russia, China, and even Iran, rogue nations. Now, when I first heard about this, I automatically knew that is it a surprise or a coincidence that Mr. Obama and the Obama administration is pushing such an agenda, and they're pushing this just a few months that he's supposed to be leaving office? Is that a coincidence whatsoever? I'm telling you, the groundwork for this has already been laid out, and the question is, are you seeing it? Because I'm here at Washington Examiner and it says America to hand off internet in under 2 months. And mind you, this is supposed to be as of October 1st, just a few weeks before the alleged election, so to speak. Is that a surprise or a coincidence? Either it's not looking like it. And so it says the Department of Commerce is set to hand off the final vestiges of American control over the internet to international authorities in less than 2 months, officials have confirmed. The department will finalize the transition effective October 1st, Assistant Secretary Lawrence Strickling wrote on Tuesday, bearing what he called, quote, any significant impediment. The move means the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, or the IANA, which is responsible for interpreting numerical addresses on the web to a readable language, will move from U.S. control to the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or ICANN, which is the corporation behind this, which we're going to go over later on, a multi-stakeholder body based in Los Angeles that includes countries such as China and Russia. And if you don't already see the propaganda here, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, because they've been pushing this old cybersecurity, and there's a threat of cybersecurity, and you're going to see that in Mr. Obama's executive orders that he's unconstitutionally passing. But not only that, it's getting to the point now where they're moving things and making things internationally. We're seeing what? International New World Order, one world government, just like the military has moved from the US to the UN. And soon enough, the United Nations is going to bring in military into the United States. Don't believe me? Just wait. Now, although the BBC wants you to believe that, oh, they're just handing over the internet's naming system, oh no, it's much deeper than that, because I'm telling you, they're conditioning us and getting us ready slowly and slowly for the alleged EMP, or the electromagnetic pulse, so-called cybersecurity. And notice how in mainstream media, they keep constantly bringing up Russia and China, and they're equating Russia and China with all of this mess. The reason that they're doing that is because are they going to blame those countries for the EMP when the EMP strikes, blaming anything but the US government and all those terrorists who are involved with it? Is that what they're getting ready to do, or is that just another coincidence too? I'll I'll let you be the judge of that on your own. But the actual article itself says that the US has confirmed it is finally ready to cede power of the internet's naming system, ending the almost 20-year process to hand over a crucial part of the internet's governance. The DNS, or the domain naming system, is one of the internet's most important components. It pairs the easy to remember web addresses like bbc.com and blah blah blah. But what's very interesting is that it says the terms of the change were agreed upon in 2014, but it wasn't until now that the US said it was finally satisfied that ICANN was ready to make that change, and it will get the keys to the kingdom, as one expert put it. Which expert? On October 1st, 2016. Very interesting and suspicious indeed. From that date, the US will lose its dominant voice, although ICANN will remain in Los Angeles. If anyone can, I can. Very interesting. What are they really getting us ready for? What's really going on here? Is this just more preparation for the new world order? Out with the old, in with the new? Getting rid of the old United States and replacing it with the new world kingdom? Is that what they're subliminally trying to tell us? That's exactly what it's looking like. Now, what I also thought was interesting was this letter from August 10th of 2016, so just a few weeks ago, and it's from Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi and many others, and it has to do with internet freedom, so to speak. And I'm going to tell you exactly the bigger agenda here, but it says, we write to urge Congress to defend its power of the purse and internet freedom. Our Constitution rests on the idea that the power of the purse belongs to Congress, not the president, because, as Elbridge Gerry put it at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, the House is, quote, more immediately the representatives of the people, and the people ought to hold the purse strings, even though they don't follow the Constitution themselves whatsoever. So what does it really matter? But let's keep going, because it says the House fought to defend this core democratic principle in 2014 when it sued over implementing the Affordable Care Act subsidies that weren't appropriated by Congress. Now, the administration appears determined to violate clear appropriations prohibiting the transition of the internet domain system without authorization. If the administration does not relent, Congress should sue. And it's interesting how they're pushing this, and this is what they're pushing. Congress twice enacted appropriations riders prohibiting any use of taxpayers' funds, quote, to relinquish the responsibility of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or the NTIA, with respect to Internet Domain Name System functions, including responsibility with respect to the authoritative root zone file and the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, or the IANA functions. In other words, Congress ordered NTIA not to let lapse the government contract under which the IANA function, especially the Internet's phone book, has been run by a private California nonprofit since 1998. However, failure to renew this contract before the end of August would, according to the NTIA, allow the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or the ICANN, to take over management of the IANA function. This transition would end the U.S. government's historic role as a guarantor of internet governance. Did you hear that? Do you see where this is leading up to? Then it goes on to talk about internet governance and the threat of cybersecurity, because there's always a threat, and how they are afraid about multi-stakeholders holding it. But of course, we know the bigger agenda behind all this, because we know it's all planned and it's all staged ahead of time in preparation for the electromagnetic pulse, and they're using cybersecurity and the threat of cybersecurity in order to do that. I highly recommend you read this letter on your own time, because it is the coalition letter of the IANA that was published a few days ago, and I'll leave the helpful information in the description box below so you can see it on your own time. Now, this is the actual update from Lawrence E. Strickling, who is the Assistant Secretary for Communications and Information and NTIA Administrator, and this is the actual update that was just updated a few days ago. And it even says, 2 months ago, we passed an important milestone in a nearly 20-year effort to privatize the Internet Domain Name System, or the DNS. We announced back on June 9th that the transition proposal developed by the Internet multi-stakeholder community meets the criteria we outlined back in March 2014 when we declared our intent to transition NTIA stewardship role related to the DNS. While this was a significant moment in this journey, we said back in June that the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, or ICANN, which we're going to go to in a second, which currently operates the IANA functions under a contract with NTIA, still had work to do to implement key action items called for in the transition plan. On Friday, ICANN informed NTIA that it was completed or will complete all the necessary tasks called for in the transition proposal by the end of the contract term. NTIA has thoroughly reviewed this report. We informed ICANN today that based on that review and bearing any significant impediment, NTIA intends to allow the INA functions contract to expire as of October 1st, which is when this is supposed to be enacted. Then it goes on to talk about how it represents the final step in the U.S. government's long-standing commitment, supporting by 3 administrators, to privatize the Internet's domain name system. That's what they want you to believe, and that's what they want you to think. But really what this is about is more censorship and more spying on us. That's exactly all it's doing and getting ready for. They know exactly what they're doing. Then they talk more about the privatization of the DNS by asking ICANN to convene Internet stakeholders to develop a plan to transition NTIA's stewardship role for the DNS to the Internet multi-stakeholder community, and that was back in March of 2014. Now here I am at the actual ICANN website so you can see exactly what it is and what this company really does. But once again, it's what another alphabet soup, and I honestly would not be surprised if it's run by the United Nations, if it's run by the UN, and notice how it's available in all of these languages. I'm telling you, they're getting ready for the new world order and the one world internet system. It's ready to go, folks. It's honestly here, folks. The one world system is here, but the question is, are you ready for it? Because it's going to come like a snare in a day or hour that you think not. But it says what this ICANN do. To reach another person on the internet, you have to type an address into your computer, a name or a number. That address has to be unique so computers know where to find each other. ICANN coordinates these unique identifiers across the world. Without that coordination, we wouldn't have one worldwide internet. Now they like to tell us that it was formed in 1998 and that it's a not-for-profit partnership of people from all over the world dedicated to keeping the internet secure, stable, and interoperable. They tell us that they don't control the content on the internet, it cannot stop spam, and it doesn't deal with access to the internet, but through its coordination role of the internet's naming system, it does have an important impact on the expansion and evolution of the internet. Do you really believe that they do not control the internet? Do you really believe that? Of course they do. And they can control what can and cannot be seen in certain places. That's why there's censorship in China and other places worldwide too. And now it's finally coming to America. They're just being quiet about it because they don't want you to know how this is all relative, because soon enough you're not even going to see anything and be able to see anything related to truth. Just look at the TPP, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and we're going to talk more about that later on as well. Now this is just a brief summary because it goes over and talks about domain names and IP addresses, but it's interesting when it says that ICANN does not run the system, but it does help coordinate how IP addresses are supplied to avoid repetition or clashes. ICANN is also the central repository for IP addresses, from which ranges are supplied to regional registries who in turn distribute them to network providers. Well, let me ask you this, because Mr. Obama is signing all of this over to ICANN for worldwide control of the internet so that the US is no longer in control, and to privatize these domain names, well, let me ask you this question. What if, according to your government, what if you're considered a terrorist? And what if you're considered a terrorist to the point where they can link you to suspicious terrorism activity? What if that's the case? And what if you could be a terrorist? Because if you're watching this video, chances are you could be. So if that's the case, well then what they could do is they could block out your IP address from certain websites, and they can block you out from certain pages because they'll have control of your IP address and they'll know exactly how they can track you. Is that what they're trying to do? Is that what they're getting ready for in preparation to shut down the system altogether in order to bring about the new world order? Is that what they're really getting ready for? Just ask your lovely president, Mr. Obama, and he'll tell you all about that, because here I am at the White House and it's actually talking about the foreign policies, and one of their issues is what? Cybersecurity, because that's a real issue, isn't it? And it says Executive Order 13636.